Talking Ole Miss football as we move on to the defense. We got Jake Evans on the line from the Rebel Walk. Please join him and the rest of the staff on over there, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, whatever you like, talking Ole Miss Rebels. Defensive front, a couple JUCOs coming in to help the cause, but pretty much everybody coming back there as well.
Yeah, so like you said, a couple of JUCOs, Isaiah Aiton and Jamon Gordon. Those are two guys that Rebel fans need to look out for this year. Those are both guys that are expected to play right now. They obviously playing in JUCO. They've played some college football before. They're as talented as they come, and they're ready to play SEC ball. Other than that, you've got Tarekius Tisdale, who's coming back. He's been here forever. I mean, I guess he's a senior now. Last year he was a senior, so this is his, COVID senior year. That dude's a stud. He's a stud. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. He can move. He hits like a brick wall. That's a great guy that the Rebs are bringing back. That makes you feel really good because even with Jamon Gordon and Isaiah Aiton being talented guys, you still like to have a key piece that's been there, and Tisdale is kind of that anchor to that team. At nose tackle, you're looking at KD Hill. That's a guy who's played before, been around. He's a big old boy. He's a hole plugger right there in the middle of that offensive line. He's got the SEC size. He's got the SEC ability, and that's a guy that the Rebs are going to lean on big time this year. Other than that, looking at the defensive line, it's there's a lot of what ifs and a lot of question marks. A lot of Rebel fans have forgotten about him, but Damon Clowney, that was a guy that was signed in last year's class, cousin of Jadeveon Clowney. Still hasn't suited up for the Rebs yet. That's a defensive lineman who's got all the talent in the world. He's a freak athlete like his cousin, and that's a guy that a lot of people have forgotten about. Like I said, other than that, you've got Tywan Malone, who the Rebels just signed out of New Jersey. He was a top 60 player in this class. He tore his ACL in his senior season of football last year, so he's recovering from that right now. That's kind of a question mark, like I said, because we're just not sure about the timetable of that recovery yet. We're not sure how much of spring, summer that he's going to be able to do. We're not sure, if they're going to be able to get him up to speed without him being able to practice. And so, that's a big question mark right there. But that's a guy that if he's healthy, I would expect to see him play right off the bat. He's got the size. He's got the speed. He's probably the most talented defensive lineman on this line at the moment. But whether or not we get to see him this year, like I said, it's kind of still up in the air. Other than that, you've got the Rebels are bringing back all their linebackers. We're ecstatic about that. We've got 4 guys that have played a lot of college football, have played a lot of good college football. We've got Momo Sonogo. People forget 3 years ago, Momo Sonogo had 115 tackles in the SEC. The guy can play football. He's kind of the captain and I would say the main voice on that defense. Other than that, you've got Jaquez Jones, who's another guy who's been around for a long time, another vocal leader, another good anchor piece to that team. And then you got Lakia Henry and Sam Williams. Those are both guys that came in as JUCO guys a couple of years ago. Same story. Both guys have played a lot of good football for the Rebels. The linebackers, they've taken a good bit of criticism over the last couple of years just because, they're quarterbacks of the defense. And it's no secret that Ole Miss's defense has been pretty poor. And so those guys have taken, a lot of heat over the last couple of years. But when you really look at it, those guys are probably playing the best football on the defense. And so we're excited about that, bringing all those guys back. And then the craziest thing about this year that I mentioned to you earlier, the Rebels have 33 defensive backs on the roster. And realistically, at least 20 of them have a chance to play this year. At least 20 of them could be competing for a starting spot this year. It really is wild. You've got guys like Otis Reese, Keedron Smith, A.J. Finley, Jalen Jones that have all played before that are, good established playmakers in that secondary. You've got guys like Mark Britt, who's a high recruit who came out last year, switched from receiver over to DB. DeAndre Prince, Miles Battle. Then you got freshmen that are coming in. You've got Dink Jackson, a 4-star. Elijah Sabatini, a very high 3-star. MJ Daniels, 4-star. Kendrick Breedlove, guy out of Nashville who's a high 3-star. And then Markevius Brown, who came from IMG, who's another 4-star. I mean, the names go on and on and on. I could give you DBs all day long, Mark, till the cows come home. But it really is crazy because there's a lot of talent in this secondary, and that's really not something the Rebels have had for a long, long time.
I'm just trying to figure out what the roster composition for the team is. If you got 33 defensive backs, you got to have everybody's got offensive linemen. You got to have about 12 or 14 of those guys. That pretty much, it might be a little bit sparse elsewhere, but 33 DBs. And like you say, AJ Finley, just looking at the stat sheet, had the best year with 3 picks and 7 passes defensed. You mentioned Keydron Smith had 64 tackles. He was second on the team in tackles, had a pick and a tackle for loss as well. Some really good stuff there. And obviously it's Jaquez Jones who led the team with 75 tackles and 2.5 tackles for loss. So I got to throw it out there for you, Jake. Everybody thinks Ole Miss football now that Lane Kiffin's on campus, and think, okay, and everybody was focused on that, both the Florida and the Alabama games early on in the season, and then caught up with the Rebels late in the season with a big win against Indiana, and think, even though the defense played really well in the bowl game, before that, it's okay, it's all offense, it's all passing, it's no defense. Do we expect a little bit better balance and more contribution from the defensive side this year?
Well, yes. Short answer, I would say yes. And man, I sure hope so. I hope I'm right there because, like we've talked about before, it's been tough to watch the Rebels play defense the last couple of years. We've had to beat teams just by outscoring them. A lot of these games, we can't stop anybody. Alabama, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, I think Alabama's, I don't remember what the total was. Say they had 500 yards. They were only capable of getting 508 yards that game, something like that. I mean, they literally moved the ball and were almost not stopped the entire day. They completed almost every chance that they had. And really that's kind of been a microcosm for our defense the last couple of years. They can't stop anything. They can't stop a nosebleed. And so, we're excited about this. Like we, Lane Kiffin talked about it going into this recruiting class. He said, look, it's no secret what we need. Look at the tape. You know what we need. Everybody knows what we need. It's defense. He signed more defensive guys in this class than offense, which, really shows that he's serious about it because everybody knows Lane Kiffin's an offensive guy. And looking at it right here, like we talked about, there's a lot of good returning talent. I would be shocked if we saw good returning talent go the wrong direction this year. That just wouldn't make any sense to me. And so, I'm inclined to believe that we're going to see a good step up from last year. Otis Reese is a guy that, he was a very, very highly rated guy, signed with Georgia, played safety. He, for some reason, was not – the NCAA held him hostage for, I think, 7 games last year. Everybody else was freed for their transfer waiver. And Otis Reese, if I remember correctly, didn't play until I think the last 3 games of the season. He was a guy who came in and played great football. The defense looked better from the moment that he stepped on the field. And, sadly, like I said, we were only able to get him for a handful of games instead of the full slate. But that's a guy who's coming back. Like we talked about on the D-line, Tariqius Tisdale's been there forever. Dude can play. We're returning 4 linebackers. We've got more DBs than anyone in the country. I mean, there's a lot of talent that goes around on this team here. And I think we're excited for it because, like I said, there's a lot of good experience. And I think there's a lot more to be optimistic about than there has been in the last couple of years.